My God, why have you forsaken me? Has to be one of the most deep and heartfelt questions ever uttered from the lips of human beings. My God, why have you forsaken me? You know, for a long time there were stories about how one time that the rabbis in the concentration camps during the Holocaust put God on trial. Put God on trial for crimes against humanity, for ignoring the sufferings and the genocide of the people. Now, for a long time, nobody knew if this really happened or not. There was a conference of rabbis and scholars, and I want to read to you what some of them said about this legend. Said many of the rabbis and academics raised questions over whether such an event ever actually happened, although many agreed that it had a high degree of possibility. One rabbi, Cohen Sherbuck, said, "I don't know that it ever happened. I always thought of it as a received story, and I certainly couldn't say definitively that it happened in the camps, but it could have. And it's such a moving story that I think it should have happened." Another rabbi described the legend as a strong legend. He said, "We can't prove that it happened, but even if it isn't true, it has truth in it, and it is utterly a possible mystery." Another scholar was asked if there's any record of God being put on trial in Auschwitz, and she said flatly, no. But she added, there is no question that individuals did put God on trial in their minds, so it is quite plausible that people did have this discussion. But I think it's a story, because I've never seen such a document testifying to such a trial. Another said that historians ask for material and eyewitness evidence. In this case, we have no material evidence whatsoever, but the story has become a part of the lore of Auschwitz. And 95% of the witnesses from Auschwitz were killed. And of those who survived, very few are now alive. She said, I think it could have happened. Why not? Besides, it doesn't matter what people did in the corner of an Auschwitz barracks. What's important is the way the story resonates with us. But on Monday night, Nobel Prize winner Elie Wiesel startled the audience at a dinner in London when he declared, "I was there when God was put on trial." He said there was only 3 people there, and at the end of the trial, they used the word chayav rather than guilty. It means God owes us something. And he said, then we went to pray. Then we went to pray. They put God on trial and found God guilty of crimes against humanity or of owing them something. And then they went to pray because somehow in the midst of all that, they had not lost their faith. I think perhaps because deep inside them they had a hope deep inside them that they maybe couldn't articulate, maybe they couldn't speak of, maybe they didn't even feel. But it was there, and it allowed them to carry on. My God, why have you forsaken me? This is also a question that Jesus asked while he's hanging on the cross. And when Jesus asked this question on the cross, these words are not his. These are words that he already knew. These are words that his family and friends who stood at the foot of the cross already knew. They knew them as those tears ran down their face. They knew them as they felt utterly helpless in the face of the darkness and the pain and the suffering that was in front of them. They knew these words. They're the words of Psalm 22. And I want to read you some pieces of this psalm. Psalm 22 begins like this. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me, from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but find no rest. The psalm starts out as a plea, and it carries on saying these words, many bulls encircle me. The strong bulls of Bashan surround me. They open wide their mouths at me like a ravening and roaring lion. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax melted within my breast. This is a cry of deep pain and sorrow and suffering. But as the psalm goes along, it also shifts. And then later we hear these words. But you, O Lord, do not be far away. Help me and come quickly to my aid. Deliver my soul from the sword. Save me from the mouth of the lion. And then the words, from you comes my praise in the great congregation. The poor shall eat and be satisfied, and all those who seek him shall praise the Lord. Do you feel the shift? And it ends up this way. To him indeed shall all who sleep in the earth bow down. Before him all who bow will go down to the dust. Posterity will serve him. Future generations will be told about the Lord and proclaim his deliverance to a people yet unborn, saying that he has done it. This psalm holds the tension of both in the pain and the suffering and the abandonment that we feel at times, alongside the hope that is deep within our bones, our hope in God, our hope in life. This psalm holds the tension between the tears that fall down our face and the courage that picks us up off the ground. In the Gospels of Mark and Matthew, this question, my God, why have you forsaken me?" are the last words that come from the lips of Jesus before his death. It's the last thing he says. And here in these Gospels, we are presented with a very human Jesus who knows the fear, who knows the pain, who knows the suffering. And we can connect with this Jesus in the midst of our own hardship and difficulty. For this question is a human cry. It's the cry of the parent whose child is killed by a drunk driver on the highway, or loses their life to one little fentanyl-laced pill, or slips away into the darkness that we call depression. It's the cry of those of us when we lose a loved one to a stray bullet, or to the violence of terror on an Israeli farm, or when a loved one is found in the rubble of a bombed building in Gaza. It's our cry when the cancer comes back, even after all that we have done. Our cry when the one who we've loved for a lifetime no longer knows our name. Our cry when life as we know it has been shattered and we are hanging by a thread. Like Jesus, we ask why. Like Jesus, we look to the sky and ask why. And like Jesus, the sky hangs over our head, silent and gray. We don't get the answer. But it's not truly an answer that we seek. I think our true desire is not for an answer, but for it not to be so. For the death not to be. For the pain and the suffering not to be. For the heartbreak not to be. You know, I heard it said long ago that every time we gather for church community on a Sunday morning, there needs to be a word of hope. There has to be a word of hope. And I've always felt that to be true. So this morning, or today, we remind ourselves of the ever-present hope that is deep within us. We remind ourselves of the rabbis who put God on trial and found God guilty and then went to pray. We remind ourselves of the words of Psalm 22 that starts out with the question, God, why don't you answer me? And ends up with the phrase, I will proclaim his deliverance to those yet unborn. We remind ourselves who stood at the foot of Jesus' cross and heard him cry out, but who also knew the rest of that psalm in that very moment. We remind ourselves of the hope that sustains us always and everywhere. And yet, at the same time, I think there's a time to cry out this question, my God, why have you forsaken me? And to let it be. To let it be in honor of all that Jesus went through and experienced. To let it be in honor of all those in the human story who have known this question and this cry. To let it be in honor of all of us who have at one point in time in our lives cried out this question. To let it be in honor of those of us for whom those very words are on our lips yet this very day. And to let it be in honor of those who will cry out this question in days to come. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why?